Okay, we are live. Welcome everyone to the Coaching to Flourish podcast. And I am your host, Raj Anderson, Executive Life Coach and Coach Assessor. And I'm here with John Andrew Williams, who is the founder of Coach Training EDU. And we've just been chatting about a few different things. And John, you look cold today. What's happening in your world?
I am super cold. We took the opportunity for U.S. Thanksgiving to get out of here and go to Hawaii, which was amazing. We spent the weekend in Oahu, and I just felt just like amazing family time. And we got back late last night, and I am now back in Hood River, Oregon. It's freezing here. It literally is freezing, and I'm so cold. So I'm wearing a hat, multiple sweaters, and it's all good, but it's just cold. And my office is we don't have. It's a green building, so it has a living roof, which is amazing. But to warm this thing up, it takes more than a day. So
Well, thank you, John, for joining us in the cold. And I know you only got back early in the morning, but what would you share was the best thing about Hawaii?
I mean, the thing that really struck me is the idea of aloha, and I saw a T-shirt. A teenager was wearing it, and it said, "Don't mistake aloha for weakness." And it was fascinating. The idea, aloha means hello, goodbye, but it means more like the spirit of me sees the spirit of you, and it's love. And this idea of greeting people, very similar to namaste, the idea of, I see you, I see the spirit you, my spirit you sees the other spirit, your spirit you. That is such a powerful thing. And also seeing, the culture of just the culture of the people. Moise has a relative who lives there, so we got to meet up with him and his wife. And it's that. And I think that a lot of times too, in the business world or corporate settings, people will confuse kindness with weakness. And what we're finding now is it's not, kindness doesn't mean you're weak. And kindness is just strength. It's a big strength. And coaching, what it does, the empathetic, I see you, it's built into their culture. And Honolulu has an amazing art history museum too. So we got to spend some time there. That was wild. The curation of it was spot on. So yeah, I was super impressed. It was fun. Yeah, but now we're here back in cold Hood River.
Well, what a beautiful message. The spirit of me sees the spirit of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you made some connections for us there, even within coaching, but I'm curious, why is that such an important message for coaches to hear?
The number one myth of coaching, everyone, this is back even when I was first got into life coaching, is that if you are a life coach, you're an expert in life, or you're an expert in knowing what someone else should do. And it comes up a lot. And I think the biggest revelation for new coaches is that coaching isn't about giving advice or knowing the right answer, or even knowing what's best for the other person, but it's about asking those powerful questions, staying in empathetic curiosity. Active empathetic curiosity is the foundation of coaching. It's listening to someone with the same passion that you want to be listened to. And from there, when you're in that space, people they naturally rise. People become oddly powerful and vulnerable at the same time. And it's not that we're judging or even giving a direction, as much as we're just asking really amazing questions that you want to answer, questions that feel like they have an opportunity to change your life if you really went deeply into it. And that's what I felt like was naturally there in some ways. Like this idea of, I'm giving you grace. I feel like aloha I mean, if there's one word, I mean, love might be it. I think it goes even more active than that. I think it's grace. Like there was a lot of grace giving, and it felt amazing.
So how as a coach do you I'm thinking about how do you build grace? Because when we go into that coaching space, something magical happens, doesn't it? We talked about it even on our last session where I was saying something transforms, I release all judgment, I am just there in this magical space, being curious and holding that space, listening to the individual. How does a coach kind of work on themselves to get into that place?
Yeah, I mean, well, you take coach training. It's
Yes.
that's what you do. You sign up and you pay the money and you show up and you do the things. I mean, I think that a lot of times people think they can do it on their own and like that you can be a coach without a training program. It's not best practice, and it's not really doing yourself the practitioner is it's really not doing yourself service. Um, it really does make sense to get the training because there are blind spots. There are even when I was getting my MCC training and went through or my applying for the master certified coach through the ICF and getting my mentor coaching. And this is after thousands of hours of coaching. I was training people to be coaches. There were even blind spots in my coaching that I realized that I was really happy to see because I know I could improve. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just constant. We saw a dolphin show, and I asked the trainer, "So how many? What's the training like? How long is it?" It's continuous. Training happens every day. If you want to be the best at something, why not? If you want to be a professional, yeah, do it every day.
Do it every day. Training happens every day. The learning happens every day as well, doesn't it? As you said, everyone knows this year I was excited I got my MCC, yet it just doesn't stop there at all. I'm continuously asking myself questions. I was in a coaching session yesterday, and because I wear a number of different hats, I had to be very intentional before I went in. And there was a moment in there I was like, stay in coach mode, be curious, because you've got to continuously use that muscle, haven't you? That coaching curiosity muscle.
Totally, totally. And yeah, coach mode is lovely because once you're in it, you realize it's flowy. Mm, it feels natural. It feels like humans are meant to be in this space with another human. Uh, yeah. Mm.
And one of the things I wanted to explore with you today was on values. So we've talked a little bit about if you want to be the best, you've got to continue to learn and train and go get your coach training, come and join us. But I know there's some great things in the curriculum. One of the things that you do look at is around clarifying values, for example. So why is that such an important part of training?
Yeah, values. Even just the term values, I think in my mind, there are a couple different even categories of values. So I think the most useful way of looking at a value is something that you give worth to. It comes from a Latin word valere, which literally means to weigh, or you put something on a scale, like how heavy is it? Like how much worth does this have? If you look, there are a couple different types of values that we make a distinction with. One is a topic value. So topic value would be family, for instance, career might be a value. Yeah, so that's topic values. And then you have experience values. And experience values might be more like flow or laughter or um, like pushing yourself to an edge. Uh Fatigue, even pushing like to fatigue might be a value that you have. It's more something that you can apply in a few different areas of your life. Even making that distinction between a topic value and an experience value gives a little bit of it helps clarify a little bit of that internal geography. So you can ask yourself, okay, so what am I really like? What really does have worth in my life?
Mm.
And you can get uh, extremely precise in the definition of the things in your life that you value over others. And when you clarify them, you just, it's, I'm working with a developer, and I love it when he asks when he asks me the question, like if I'm just rambling or something, he'll ask, okay, John, define the problem, define it. And the same idea of like, define the value. What's the value? What are you really after? What do you really truly give worth to? And when you start doing that, defining that, that clarification naturally leads you to take action steps, which increases fulfillment, which is the bread and butter of coaching. So this is where this is the mechanics of why coaching works. Even just asking people, so what are your top 10 values? They'll mostly go for the topic value. But then when you start asking them, getting really into coaching sessions, and you can start defining experience values. Oh, that's when things really start to take off for people and their fulfillment levels.
I love how you're explaining that as well, John, because it reminds me often when I'm working with leaders and we're looking at their own values before we look at kind of organizational values or team values. One of the things we stumble across as well is their kind of actual values versus aspirational values, because sometimes we pick values that we want to have or sound great, but our day-to-day life is not demonstrating that that's a value because it's not showing up in our behaviors or actions. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. It's amazing, Raj. You know, if you go back to this idea of grace, I think one of the biggest things that it shows up is self-grace, where you give yourself grace for like past decisions or things that may not have worked out as great as you wanted them to. There is a distinction between we'll call it self-grace and self-deception, where you're saying no, it's really okay if I do this thing when you really do need to be more disciplined and roll your sleeves up, do the work, or avoid the thing. I mean, these are all decisions, internal decisions that we all face on a daily basis. When people start making decisions based on their most deeply held values, it for me, it's like, as a coach, it starts to show up in people. They usually let stuff go. It's more around, okay, I'm no longer doing this action that I feel like is time wasting or doesn't align with what I really truly want in my life. And so a lot of the aspirational or actual values, and they show up in behavior. Value work, in my mind, is as much of what are you letting go of as much as what are you bringing into your life. Most people, most of the time, look at what else can I add to my life? What else can I bring into my life? That's not bad, but you're really getting to it when you start cutting things out.
Letting go. Talking about self-grace. I'm hearing that then self-grace can also, for me, would lead to self-acceptance, because it's also being able to love ourselves through self-deception, or when we might think that we're not doing enough. Or for me, it's being able to love myself through my shadow side as well as when I'm in the light, because not always getting it right. My behaviors, sometimes I have to work on them. I know it's hard to believe. Most of the time I'm self-aware, but there are times when I don't say things in the way that I would want to, or I'm a bit short-tempered, or I think about experiences that I've had with loved ones, or that inner critic shows up and I'm thinking, oh, did I really do enough? Have I achieved enough this year? This is normally a time of year where people start to criticize themselves or question. So there is that self-grace bit, but for me, it's going deeper and also moving towards self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. It shows up even this morning, right? We get in late last night. The flight gets delayed even a little bit more. And so we finally get to Hood River at 2 a.m. which is not recommended with little ones. It's a lot. There is a workout class that I recently subscribed to the winter months. It meets at 6 a.m. in the mornings on Tuesday, Thursday.
Wow.
Is that going to happen? So the aspirational value says, yeah, right. Topic value says yes. I now know enough to know myself. Not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And to know, but in the past, I think there would have been a pressure to think, okay, yeah, let's just, be the iron person and say, let's do it anyway. 4 hours of sleep, who cares? Let's rock this. Nope. It's a lot about, if you're looking at the neuroscience of us, of humans, the limbic system, the lizard brain, the more primal system, needs to be honored. It needs to be attended to. It needs to be respected. And a lot of times when people in coaching sessions are being coached, that naturally happens. They realize, okay, my primal self has needs, wants, desires, and dreams. When the primal self feels respected, then the frontal cortex has way less work to do, way less heavy lifting. Motivation is easier to find. The self-grace is there because your primal self isn't screaming. And the same thing in executive coaching. When executives feel like, they're doing their life's work and other aspects of their life are in alignment, getting that frontal cortex to do its job, which is to be more, to enjoy those more complex ideas. It's just a lot easier to make that happen, as opposed to using the frontal cortex to punish the primal self. That internal battle is brutal. But yeah, no. Maximize sleep. I'm like, I know it. My primal self, yes, you need the hours. I'm going to give you those hours. And then now the frontal cortex self is surfing. Surf the day.
Often when I'm listening to new coaches, say if they were coaching somebody in that instance, I often hear that they might go to then doing, or, okay, well, how would you make up for that missed session this week? Or, what would you do differently? Or what else will you do? Versus the holding grace space, which might be something like, well, what's okay about missing the session, or being in more curiosity with a grace type of question. So how would you have coached in that instance, or where would you go with somebody who might be beating themselves up because they missed that 6 a.m. session?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think part of what makes coaching amazing is, there are a dozen different ways to go. And one of my favorite ways to go with almost every coaching session is to go with whatever it is. So what's the usefulness of beating yourself up over, what's the usefulness of that frontal cortex screaming? And then what does the primal self need? And facilitating a conversation between those two. I'm not making up that session. I don't really care. I do not care one bit. I have zero guilt. It does not matter in the long run. A lot of it is just trying to figure out, what do you need to be an instrument so you can fulfill the larger purpose you feel called to in this life. And when you're looking at yourself as an instrument, as a vessel for something larger than yourself, it takes away a lot of the internal angst that I think is pretty common because people have not, as a general guideline, people don't have that clear. Most people don't have that clearly defined. What are you really trying to accomplish in your life? Like, what do you feel called to do in your life? And when you tap into that, decisions become extremely clear. And there is an element that I've been really leaning into lately of, I could have made different decisions back, what if I had done this or done that? Like the what ifs I had taken different directions at different times. And that can get really brutal. You mentioned it earlier. And I was talking to a friend and they were saying that kind of thinking leads to a deeper message that I do not trust the path, or I do not trust what has happened. And that's a pretty thorny, place to be. You're going to get pricked over and over again. Uh, yeah, I've been sitting with that. Like, how much do you really trust your path? Do you really trust your spirit self? Regrets, what ifs, all that sends a message I don't trust.
And it's that the grace, the holding the space, the being curious, the trust that we build in ourselves as coaches as well. Trust yourself, trust the process, trust the client. Because you saying very clearly we weren't in a coaching session, but you're like, I don't have any regrets. It's absolutely fine. So that's where, as coaches, some tips for you to think about. We have to release our own assumptions as well. Really listen to what the person's saying, really connect with them, which also goes right back to Aloha, doesn't it? In terms of, I see you.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. I feel like my regrets more focused around career, which is really funny to me sometimes too. Like when things are going well, it's more of a barometer. But like, how are things going in the last 3 months? It's more of a barometer. Everyone has them, even executives I work with. I mean, you've coached people and they have. I mean, it's just part of the deal. There was it Steve Jobs or somebody was talking about the minimum regret theorem. It might have been Godin, Seth Godin, talking about what is the formula for minimum regret, and part of it is, part of what I see is coaching people is what do you need to stop doing. Is a big part of it. It's the stop doing list, and then there's usually, in my life included, a few aspirational goals, usually involving creativity, producing something. Those aspirational goals, not achieving those, I think leads to some pretty serious regret. And if we're going to diagram regret, I mean, those are the two main categories that I see. What you needed to have stopped doing and what you needed to have started doing. And if you had done this 10 years ago, where would you be now? These are not very fun questions to go to solo. I don't recommend going to them solo. But when you're working with a coach, yes, absolutely. These are amazing questions to explore in the safe boundaries of a coaching session.
Thank you, John. So what I'm taking away from today is that working with your coach, perhaps explore those questions around what can I stop doing? What can I start doing? But I'm also hearing, what do I want to let go of? Or I'm going to ask myself, how can I have more grace with myself today? I know we're on time, John, but what other words of wisdom would you leave us with today?
Gratitude for you, Raj, and it's your birthday tomorrow.
It is.
So
I love my birthday. Thank you.
Big happy birthday.
Thank
And I just I really appreciate you, the space you bring, everything Yeah, everything you bring. There's there's such I mean, birthdays are so fun. It's an opportunity to really look at yourself and celebrate your life. Yeah, hope you have an amazing one tomorrow.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. And I'm grateful to you for on the little sleep that you've had, you've still brought such great energy and such words of wisdom for us. And of course, grateful for this whole community. So thank you to everyone.
Yeah, thanks. See you next week.
See you. Bye.